Welcome to partialarc.com. Don't do that.
In the grim darkness of the far future, there is only war. And a lot of weird shit. Roll to seize!
Welcome to Roll to Seize. This is episode 42. I'm your host, Jay Jones, and I'm joined by my co-host and Warhammer enthusiast, Andrew Dickinger.
Hello!
Andrew, it is our last episode of 2017.
Yeah, it's been a crazy year for Warhammer.
Man, it's been a wild year here in the Black and Brown Library. It's just like, man, so many changes.
I mean, the webway's been a-shifting. That's for sure.
A lot of shifts. A lot.
A lot of carpets getting pulled.
Yeah, I
out
know.
from under people. It's kind of rude, but
constantly. Look, the Harlequins have their tricks, and
that's true.
We all love a good carpet pulling, but it just happened a lot.
You know, what's weird about being in the webway, though, especially the Brown and Black Library, is that every time the carpet gets pulled, it has that weird, like, cartoony pratfall sound.
Yeah,
and it comes from the walls, and I'm concerned.
Yeah, we don't exactly know where that sound emanates from. We asked the Harlequins, and they don't say anything.
They just looked at us.
And that's the weirdest part. Like, if they laughed or they said anything, but you can't see behind the mask. I don't know if they're concerned.
Yeah, well, that one mask...
Or if they think we're idiots.
That one mask went from the smiley face to the frowny face, so that made me even more concerned.
Yeah, I'm very upset about the pratfall sounds.
Yeah.
When you start to hear the pratfall sounds, you know chaos is coming. But yeah, I mean, let's talk a little bit about the year as a whole. I mean, man, from January to now, what a difference in the entire Warhammer 40k scene.
I feel like we've gotten more Warhammer, air quotes, in the last year than we did from probably 4th edition to 6th edition.
Yeah, like so many changes, so many like exciting things. Like I gotta say, like I've never been so excited to be a Warhammer 40k player than I am today.
Oh my god! Like I just go to games, I don't fucking care. I just want to play,
and it's so fun. You talk to players about that all the time. Like people, you know, the veterans who made it through the long war of 6th and 7th edition, who made it through that whole thing, is like, that's what I'm so excited about, and we'll talk about this in a minute, of going to LVO, because the competitive scene, even because like, I like playing like narrative and fluffy games, but you and I are also at our core also very competitive gamers.
We may be slightly competitive, aka salty,
but the competitive scene has changed so much since last year to now, where it's just like, even when I'm playing against like, oh man, that's going to be a tough list, it's fun. And I feel like I have a chance.
Yes.
While last year at this same time, it was like, oh God, I gotta play this.
Well, I think it's important to clarify that we mostly like competitive play, not because we want to win. Winning's a bonus. It's more just because we want to be challenged, because we like trying new things. And you didn't get that from our theme of our podcast or anything. But we like to try new things, so that's why we prefer the competitive scene, because we're playing against great people, some of the best in the country and the world occasionally, especially at LVO.
Oh, yeah.
And you play against these hard people, and they do stuff you never thought about. And they
do crazy tricks.
And they force you to think outside of the box, maybe beyond what you would normally do with your army. So it's in general just an awesome, fun learning experience. LVO last year, this is no knock on Frontline. Like, this is nothing to do with you guys.
And also, this has nothing to do with them.
This has to do with the edition. The edition was a mess. It was hard to play last year. Like, there was a point where we had even considered stop playing. When you shoot a Demon Star 140 plus times and don't kill a single model, it's like, I'm not even playing.
What am I even doing here?
It's just you doing your turn, and then I just sit here and watch you do it.
I quite literally remember at LVO last year, I played an army. I believe you played the same guy.
Yep.
And by the way, this is in no way a statement on that player, because he's also playing in this meta of absolute madness. So
it's a cheese, so then you have to do cheese to combat that cheese, and it's just no one has fun.
And it is in no way in any sort of reflection on the players. It's just like, it's the environment that you must work in if you want to play in it.
Yeah.
And it was just, I remember I played an army where I think he had like tons of Zinch Heralds or Demon Princes or whatever, and the super dog star of that Korn had.
It was the guy that had the dog star and the Screamer star.
I think it was, and then Zinch Sorcerers or whatever. It created, basically what happened was he had a bunch of independent characters that all joined one super dog unit, and it had so many buffs and so many things that I literally couldn't kill anything. So my entire game was just me running away from it, and I did okay because, like, you were just, like, trained in the gauntlet of 7th edition of how to optimize on mission because you couldn't sometimes kill your opponent.
That was an actual realistic constraint of the game, that it was so rock, paper, scissors that you could literally play an army and know there was nothing you could do about
you
it.
just couldn't kill it. And now, if I gotta name the hardest armies you come up against now, I think like a really optimized Astra Militarum list. I think like Morty and Magnus with a bunch of brims. Before we had chapter approved, when we had all those, what were they called? The Malefic Lords.
Yes.
And the triple Bane Blade super tank lists. Like, you get a lot of different variations as the, of course we had the flyer spam when it started in 8th edition. Like, we've had a lot of evolutions of like those crazy lists in the meta, but even when I played those lists, I still had opportunities to win, and I either did win or I lost but still had a good time.
Yeah, there's never been a situation so far in 8th edition that I've played where it's been hopeless from the get-go.
Right.
And honestly, even most of the armies I play against now, granted, I'll say this, the Tyranid book is phenomenal. Like, it's a complete 180. Like, they are contenders now.
Oh, they are real contenders.
And they have answers to almost everything, and like they're just a very strong army now. And so I don't even, because of the usefulness of nearly everything in the game now, and that usefulness inspiring players to actually think outside of the normal box, especially the box that 7th left us in, I don't even know what I'm fighting anymore. Like, I actually went against a Blood Angels army in the last tournament, and I haven't seen Blood Angels do well since 5th edition. And that was the bloodiest match, no pun intended, of 8th edition that I have played. I think there was a total of 4 models left on the board. It was a complete slaughter.
That's
like,
incredible.
It was insane. Like, they are contenders now. Oh my God, Drop Death Company is just like, it's a terror. It's like, I have to do something about this or it's going to kill my whole army. But yeah, every list that I've played against, I can't really name what the top army is anymore.
Yeah, and even the things that are really tough, to face, like a Mortarion beefed up, or like a Magnus with his 3+ rerollable ones, like even like, I noticed I've just named 2 Primarchs, but like, you know what I mean, like the tough stuff out there, I still play those games, and you kill them, and you find ways around them, and you find tricks.
Well,
like, it's great.
It needs to be made clear again that 8th edition, everything dies. Like, even the 3+ rerolling ones, like, that's close to cheese in this edition, but you have mortal wounds, and if anything gets through that, then like that's basically it. He can't take on an entire army anymore.
No.
So
I think he swings. He doesn't do the leaf blower attack that Mortarion does. He's got like, I think 6 attacks max.
Yeah, I mean, he has 6 or 7 attacks, and they're
he
powerful.
has super smite, but it's just he doesn't kill a whole army anymore.
No.
And since we've been talking quite a bit about like all the things that have changed since 7th to 8th and everything that's happened in a year, I think it only makes sense that we talk about things going forward, what we've already seen be teased about how Games Workshop is going to address certain things in 2018.
Yeah, I mean, one thing we need to point out, and we mentioned this with the carpet pulling, but essentially they're actively, not, I wouldn't say nerfing, but reorganizing armies so that cheese doesn't happen. Like, as soon as it occurs, it's weeks away from that suddenly being gone.
Yeah, that Codex FAQ is fast and swift and mighty.
Yes.
It is just like, no, you can't use this unit that way. It's like, oh, all right, fair enough.
Yeah, I mean, so that's phenomenal, and we've already been teased of the changes to Smite since Smite spam was an issue.
Yeah, they're doing this really cool thing where they're now kind of releasing, like other kind of popular game series, will release like betas into the community and be like, hey, want to test this for a little while and then let us know, which is, I think it's, I can't remember, but like, I think this is brand new for Games Workshop. I can't remember a time where they like released beta rules for the game and were like, test this out.
I don't think there was ever a beta version of any type of rules in any of the editions that I've ever played.
And I mean, a lot of systems, not typically wargaming, but a lot of like role-playing games will do this, where they'll test like new classes or things like that and let people play it for like a year or half a year and then get feedback. And for a game like Warhammer 40K, where balance is so key, and they've done, look, up to this point, they've done an amazing job of balance already with 8th edition. But even going forward, to have this kind of like beta, like kind of pulling back the curtain a little bit and kind of removing some of that majesty of being like, we have come out and here's our new decree for FAQ. Like,
yeah, now, I need to point something out. There may be some people that look at that and they're like, oh, well, they're just not doing the work. It's not true. I worked in video games for 6+ years. There's only so much you can test internally.
Oh, yeah.
There's only so much. And then once it hits public and suddenly you have 100,000 people playing, it's like, holy shit,
and
there's
the
all
thing
this
is,
broken
like,
stuff.
even as diverse of a test group as you can create internally, it's never going to be enough as it would be when you release it to the community. Like, people are always going to figure out and see things that you could have never seen.
Most importantly, the tournament scene, because all of the tournament players are going to be looking for the kick-ass, you didn't think of this strategy.
The optimizations, yeah.
Yeah, so, like, yeah, that's a smart play because it allows people who actively care about the competitive state of the game to test something and be like, this is a good idea, or no, I don't think that this may be too much type of situation.
And like intelligently, it really invites the competitive community who truly have like a very loud voice when any of these FAQs come out.
Yep.
You know, they tend to be the loudest of like, this is crazy, like why did you nerf this or do that? Like it does two things. Like first, you know, one of the bigger backlashes I would say for 8th edition, which we love and we don't have a problem with, but I know there's been a lot of frustration and I understand why, right? I get it, of these quick and fast FAQs right after like a codex comes out,
yes,
or right after a previous change had taken place, which I completely understand, right? You see something, it looks amazing, you buy a bunch of it, you start painting it up, and this hobby requires so much time to get things ready. I mean, we still don't have all of our stuff ready. I mean, I've been painting my Eldar army for years. It's still not even done, barely. But I get why people get frustrated when these FAQs come in and just quickly like slam, something they've been working on.
Here's the thing. It is an investment. Just like any other major hobby, it is an investment. You are investing not only your time but your money to create an army and have that army be playable. Now, here's my counter to that. My counter to that is Games Workshop very clearly identified this early in the year as saying, don't get stuck to anything that seems like it's cheese for too long.
Right.
They did preface that, and people didn't want to listen, and then they buy $200 plus models, and suddenly they're not usable anymore, and it's like, well, that's kind of your own fault.
And the thing is, I also see both sides, because I think it's because 7th edition also trained us to think that insane broken things would stay for a while.
Once again, getting out of that box is so hard.
So, like, you know, it's kind of like getting out of a bad relationship. It's like, but I'm so used to this being this way. It's like, it's not going to be like that going forward. So I think we give both sides a little bit of leeway, but what's so incredibly awesome about this approach is because Games Workshop is releasing these beta rules early, they're inviting the community to be a part of the rule process.
Yes.
Not just a test group. So now when they make a confirmation on Smite now has a +1 to cast every time you cast an additional Smite.
Or it's -1. -1 to the test.
-1 to the test. Sorry. I meant it's more difficult.
Well, -1 to the test is actually worse for the caster than it being one higher because then it's an easier chance to be denied.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. That's true. Actually, that makes sense.
Yes.
And the thing is, like, that's a really smart way to look at building it out and doing this whole bit of inviting the community in, because now when you're inviting the community in and they put a stamp on it, we've been part of it. We can't like rush to our closest podcast mic or our closest phone or a computer and just type up something because we were part of it.
Yeah, listen,
we had the conversation already.
It's very clear what Games Workshop wants. What Games Workshop wants now is diversity. They don't want spam. It's clear that every decision they've made is like, let's get rid of the spam. Spam is boring. Let's have some diversity in the armies.
Is it. And we're going to talk about very soon, later in this episode, we're going to talk about our lists, and quite literally for both you and me, we're using things that we would have never used.
All over the fucking
And I'm
place.
having the best time playing with them.
Oh, yeah.
And the thing is, like, it is such a smart approach to solving the FAQ problem of being like, look, we get it. Like, you're worried about these things changing really fast. not only are we now having set times, that's another thing they released, that we're going to have set times during the year of when you can expect these big FAQs to happen for the whole edition.
Yep.
But also, we're going to make you part of the bigger changes. And we want your feedback, and we want you to be vocal.
Yeah, because they don't want to release a rule thing that they may think is right, then ruins the meta for the community. So
Exactly. So I love what they're doing now with every way that they're approaching the community and the game as a whole. I mean,
Warp Arm,
big old fans for the great workshop.
3 thumbs up.
Oh God, did you get another mutation?
No, that came out from the wall. That was weird. Maybe that's the guy doing the sounds.
Andrew, do you have a... Oh, my God. We'll have to figure that out. But excited about the new year, how they're addressing FAQs, how they're involving the community, even more than they've already involved the community. So
2018 is anything like 2017. It's going to be a great year.
Going to be good stuff. But I think that leads us into a good topic. Let's talk about LVO coming up this year. First off, we're both incredibly excited to go. And if any of you guys listening are going to be at LVO, definitely hit us up. We'll be in our Roll to Seize t-shirts. Say hello. But man, it's soon. It's like, is it less than a month away now? It's almost.
It's almost a month away.
Yeah, it's close. I actually, by the time of this release, it'll be about a month away.
It'll be about a month. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm very excited. Rapidly trying to get all my army painted up and based.
Three color min with the actual basing requirements.
The basing requirements really getting me. I've never based my army.
Yeah.
I've never based it.
Beyond colors to differentiate squads.
Yes, I've done that quite a bit, but never actually, put some flock on there and put some little grass and trees and pebbles and things.
Well, it does mean one thing, Jay. It means that the armies in general at LVO this year are going to be awesome looking.
They're going to look schmexy.
Yeah.
Look pretty damn good. And speaking of LVO, now I know we're going to talk about our lists a little bit later, maybe in our Brown Library segment, but for right now we're going to our favorite segment always, which is our Seasons of the Month.
Jay, you go first.
No! I didn't even get through the whole intro and you already cut me off, you sneaky son of a bitch. But as we do here each month, we talk about the games that we did poorly in at our previous tournament. And you have selected me to go first, you clever son of a bitch. So I will go.
I win.
Honorably first, as honorable people do. And talk about how I screwed up. So, in this last tournament, I was playing my new Craft World Eldar list.
Yes.
And I had quite a few crazy things in there. I had a Phoenix Lord, Ozerman, who is the man, the myth and legend, all rolled into one. I love that character. He's so good. So many times he rolled into close combat, rolled those 6s to wound, did some exploding D3 mortal wound hits. It felt so good.
Tasty?
Yeah.
Palpable?
He punked a Contemptor Dreadnought in one go. It was incredible. I had some really hot rolls, but still, it was awesome.
Yeah, having a tiny little Eldar man do something like that.
Yeah, just right. I'm like, oh yeah, no, just this little sword, bam, just there he goes. But he was tons of fun. I also had the Avatar, which was what? Avatar of Cain? There he is.
Yes, he is good.
He is good.
His speed is an issue.
He has some real struggles. Going into it, I was very excited because I was like, oh, I can just quicken him and run him up the field, kind of like Warp Time, but for Eldar. Turns out, luckily found this out before I used it, but definitely planned it when I built the list, that Quicken doesn't work on the Avatar because he's a monster. He is not...
It's infantry only, right?
Infantry, yeah.
Yeah.
Bummer.
Missed that one.
Yep. Oof. That was kind of the thing that was the linchpin of being I think he's usable. You can just slingshot him up the board, but without that, yeah, he's a little too slow. He doesn't kind of work for my playstyle, but I definitely think he can work for someone else's playstyle. Absolutely. Definitely don't discount him.
He's very good.
He was a lot of fun every time I got him into close combat. But basically, where my C's comes from, I'm going to call it the overcommitment catastrophe. Basically, I got real scared of something, and I threw everything at it, and it died way faster than I expected it to. And then I put myself at a little bit of a disadvantage. So the story goes...
Usual Jay.
Yeah, usual me. The bloodthirst was so strong. We're like, send everything. So basically, I was playing this game. It was the last game of the tournament, and I was playing against a demon player. He was running the Mortarion and Magnus Super Bro combo, where they fist bump and shoot everybody with psychic powers and leaf blow them with scythes. And he also backed these two up with kind of like a little cool character posse. He had like Ahriman, he had like, there was like a Nurgle sorcerer, I believe, that his ability is like he can give Mortarion like D3 wounds back each turn. So he's kind of like they had their own hype men behind them. Like Ahriman's like, you can do it, Magnus, and like this like Nurgle sorcerer is like, you know, because he's filled with gross stuff. And I believe the last one was the Changeling, and he doesn't say anything. He's just a shady dude, keeping to himself back there. And he had like a bunch of little brimstones to back it up. He also had 2 fire raptors, and those are still mean.
Still very good.
Still real mean. God, those things have so many shots. But basically, I went up against that, and turn 1, he threw Mortarion up the field of my whole army. I had some Dark Reapers.
Like usual.
Yep, like usual. I had some Dark Reapers that were being shielded by a bunch of Rangers, because I had to screen them when I saw that he was going first. I had like my Wave Serpent out there. I had a bunch of people up in space, like my Guardians and my Fire Dragons and all this stuff.
Now, I have to ask you one question first.
Oh, please.
Did you forget to roll to seize?
Now, I did the entire tournament, but sadly for me, this is the one game that I was going first, and he seized on me.
Oh.
So I got my own comeuppance. This is my seize of the month in so many different ways. Not only did I get seized on, but also I'm an idiot. So basically, Mortarion flies up, as he does, goes in and kills just a bajillion things. And I'm terrified because Mortarion's in my lines. I'm like, all right, I gotta do everything. I gotta send everything to this guy. So I drop in my Fire Dragons out of the Wave Serpent right next to him. I drop my Guardian Bomb next to him. I got my Avatar running up towards Mortarion. My Farseer's standing there. My Spirit Seers are standing there with Smite and everything on lock. A few of my Dark Reapers, I used 2 CP to give them that stratagem where they can leave combat and still fire. And everything is just aiming at Mortarion. Psychic Phase rolls around, and I get a couple Psychic Powers off. I roll pretty well, and you can't deny them. I got this little psychic power off called Jinx.
A little Jinxin?
Little Jinxin. Pretty good against Mortarion.
-1 to saves?
-1 to all saves. That means his 4-up invul turns into a 5-up, and guess what? That hurts Mortarion quite a bit.
Melt-a-weapons, maybe?
Oh, yes. So 10 Fire Dragons were staring down now a 5-up invul Mortarion, and they were pretty pumped. They were also guided. He was also doomed.
And they were in half range.
Because they came out of the Wave Serpent. Yeah. They didn't Webway strike in or anything. So, man, I overkilled Mortarion. The Fire Dragons killed him themselves. Just that unit of 10 wiped him out. And what I did, my big goof, as you can tell, my entire army, instead of moving up the field, because, by the way, Mortarion was in my lines, and I dropped my entire army, the ones that could deep strike in, the things that could move, like my Wave Serpents, into my own lines. So then for the rest of the game, after I'd blown up Mortarion, I was just slogging up the field, trying to get to his objectives, to his other units, and with Fire Raptors flying around and like having his little Nurglings like drop down everywhere, he had all these objectives for multiple turns shooting me from range. It took me so long to get back into the game because of that. It really crippled me. So my Seize of the Month is absolutely that I saw Mortarion, I was just like freaking out, like, but kill him with everything. And like, my God, my 20-man Guardian Bomb, which is usually really good, would have been great against his Brimstone guys and some of his characters in the back to start clearing that out. Completely wasted. So my recommendation, don't fear the Reaper, quite literally.
Boo.
Anyways, that's my Seize of the Month. Andrew, what's your Seize?
So it was kind of more of a tournament-wide oversight, because I won. So,
which we can all agree was a huge oversight, and that's it, right?
Yeah. So I won.
It was more like all of our Seizes of the Month. It was that we let you get to this place.
Exactly.
How terrible!
I did nothing wrong. No, I still did plenty wrong, but I still pulled it out in the end. I'm really happy with the new ITC missions. Like, we'll talk about this a little bit later, but essentially the new scoring system and how the primary and secondary works and how it's not a random mechanic anymore, because it was a random mechanic in 7th. You could just have bad die rolls and then you have bad objectives and then you're just screwed, which sucked. But now with the pre-picking and everything, like, it's just like it's the bread and butter I needed so that I can see an army and I'm like, this. And I just was like, well, you're going to have to get max points because if you don't, I do. And
that's true.
So I was playing with Tyranids, of course. because they're the best army now.
Well, they're taking over the universe, right? And you want to be on that side.
I mean,
if you can't beat them, join them, right?
You got to be on one side, Jay.
I mean, yeah.
You're either food.
Look, we're going to be biomass, all of us, at the end of all of this. So.
I mean, you're either food, a.k.a. poop,
yep.
eventually.
Or a hive tyrant. Look, I could be a hive tyrant, right? They're going to eat me. They got to do something with me.
They're going to realize our psychic potential is so great.
I can be... we got to save these 2 minds for sure. They could be termagants, definitely.
So I was using 2 battalions, a Kronos battalion and a Kraken battalion. Kraken is the bee's knees. I think it is the best Hive Fleet adaptation that they have. Now
it's very good.
There's a couple, only one dud. The rest of them are all usable. Like, they all have good stuff in them. I think Kraken is just like the go-to. Like, it's what I've needed. It's the light of my life. And I took Kronos.
My first love.
Yeah, I took Kronos really just to use the Kronos stratagem that forces an enemy psyker to cast on only 1 die. It was marginally useful. Like, I mean, obviously it's not useful at all if you go against an army that has no psykers. Even against armies that had psykers, they were usually smart enough to know which units had Kronos and therefore stay far enough away. I only ever really did it once. Other thing I found out is that NIDs need shit tons of CP. And 9 was not enough.
Well, look, they're hungry predators of space. You know, they got it. They eat quite a bit. They poop even more so.
Eating them CPs.
Yeah.
Like crazy. Like, there was there are 2 of the 3 games I spent 7 CP on the first turn. Like,
wow.
Like, just gone so fast. Because their stratagems are so useful and they can do such a huge impact from the get-go that I was just like, well, I gotta do this. Unfortunately, I forgot about certain wargear that I had. Forgot not 1 game, not 2 games, but all 3 games.
Nicely done.
So I was actually running melee warriors. I had in my Kraken battalion, my 3 troops were 3 units of 3 warriors with double bone swords.
Did you forget that they had bone swords?
No, I didn't. No, I didn't forget that part. But I did give them adrenal glands, which adds 1 to their
goofy person
advancing and charges. And there are numerous times where that extra inch made a massive difference, and I forgot it the entire tournament. Like, okay, I not only forgot that they had adrenal glands the whole time, and so they would have been faster the whole time, and there were multiple events. Like, one of my opponents was like, wait, you gave them adrenal glands? And I was like, oh, fuck.
I did
and he was like, you would have made that charge. And I was like, yeah, let's just forget about it. That was C's number 1. C's number 2 is in the last game. Forgot to bring my rippers in.
I feel like that's like the classic Ripper mistake, though. I feel like most Ripper death is caused by never making it to the battle.
So I usually with my reserves, I put them on my backfield on the line, and I like identify my opponent. These are my reserves. Don't shoot at them. They're just reserves, so I don't forget. This is the only game that I didn't put them there.
Amazing.
Was then. And I went first in the last game, and I didn't realize I didn't use them until I had ended my turn 3 and given them to him, which means if you don't bring them in by turn 3, they're auto-destroyed. And he was into his psychic phase, I think, and I was like, oh, fuck, I forgot to bring my rippers in. And I gave him, like, the puppy dog eyes, like, please let me bring him in.
Can I bring him in now?
Because I had also given him a freebie, allowed him to go back and do a psychic phase when he had forgotten and done shooting. But,
you gotta,
But I kind of had him on the back foot, and also
at that point he was like, no, man.
And also he gave me a look like, I'm sorry, I can't. I need everything I got.
I heard about that game. I think he was probably at the same time you asked that, he was looking over into like his box, and there was the dead Magnus, and he was probably like, nah, man, you ain't getting nothing.
So I had a stratagem that I'm not going to mention until after.
And we'll tease this, I guess, a little bit later.
Yes. But killed Magnus on the first turn
with that trickery.
He was real happy about that. There was also a Swarmlord in his lines, full Swarmlord convert at this point. He is the bee's knees. He was in his lines, and he also just absorbed like 15 mortal wounds and catalyst like 11 of them. So he was already pretty salty.
Yeah, so he was upset.
So he wasn't having it.
Yeah, those Rippers are dead.
And like I said, still won the game, but all 3 of my games, I want to point this out. Like, I won the tournament, yes, and I made some big mistakes, but still, even with the big mistakes, like, I never stopped having fun. Yeah. And this wasn't like after the wins, like, oh, that was a fun game because I won. No, it's like there was multiple games where I was like, even I played Blood Angels in the second round. I thought I was going to lose from the get-go. He brought in his Death Company on my left flank, and the entire left flank went away. Like, and there was 6 Zoanthropes there and 2 Carnifexes, and they were all gone.
All gone.
Like, there was more that I don't need to mention, but just the Death Company took out all of that. And I was just like, fuck, this game's over. I thought I had it, but now that's there. I guess I don't.
Because it's just, oh man, we all get to have fun again.
Yeah.
It's so great.
But yeah, those are my seasons. Not the destroying my own units, key, and forgetting wargear when I only literally had 3 units that had wargear, and it was them.
Nice.
And I forgot.
Oh man.
Whoops.
Oh god. Well, guys, those are seasons of the month, and that'll take us into our next segment, the Brown Library. Well, guys, here we are in our Brown Library. And instead of going over kind of like a random list build this time around like we normally do, we're actually going to talk about our list building this time around.
Yes, specifically our lists, maybe not all spoilers, but lists for LVO.
Lists for LVO, and kind of what we're thinking and how we got there, how it evolved from our previous lists, and why we're taking it. And we're just real excited about this tournament.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, we have to commit. Like, we have to be 3-colored and based. So commitment is now. Can't change.
Yeah,
can't make changes.
Can't change it.
Can't make changes.
We are locked in. Woo! Oh God. So for this, Andrew, do you want to go first?
Well, I made you go first with the seasons.
Yeah, I think it's only fair
that
that you reveal all your bug-like secrets.
I will go first.
Excellent.
So, surprise, I'm playing Tau. No, I'm just kidding. I'm playing Nids.
Despite it all, I'm bringing Tau.
Yeah, Tau needs some work. They are in a bad place. But Tyranids, they are very good. I have yet to find an actual bad unit in the Codex. I think the closest thing to it now, especially with the chapter of proof changed, is Lictors, unfortunately, are just not good.
Well, you're gonna, I mean, look, to go from everything's bad to, I guess if I had to pick one that's bad, like to have that statement is like, all right, things are pretty good right now.
So I've been, in the last tournament, I'll point this out, I ran 2 detachments. I was running a Kraken detachment and a Cross detachment, like I said. The Kraken army, I figured out afterwards, was not optimized really at all. I don't know why I did it that way, but I had 3 units of warriors. 3 units of warriors with just double bone swords. I should have put guns on them in retrospect. I thought I'd just be running them every turn.
And look, leave it to you to leave a tournament that you win to go like, everything's wrong.
Yeah.
Everything must change.
Yeah, pretty much.
Because you sent me your new list like 2 days later, and you're like, these are the changes.
It's
and I'm
just
like, what the heck, man?
It's optimized now. So things have just changed roles, okay? So running some warriors, which did reasonably well. They're not like amazing, but as a troop unit, I mean, they're good. I mean, they were fighting on greater footing than Space Marines and stuff, so that was great. I am a full Swarmlord convert now.
Finally, welcome to the party.
I am happy to admit that. Him having a 4+ invulnerable save like other tyrants is a massive change. It makes his survivability so good.
And then in close combat.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't go against an army that kept him in combat.
Could do something, yeah.
No one kept him in combat, Jay. Let's keep that clear.
That makes sense.
6 attacks, hitting on 2s without not being wounded, and wounding on 2s against most everything. You know, he only gets 1 mortal wound when he wounds on 6s, but when it happens, it's really good. Like, it's a nice enough bonus to get bonus wounds that it's like, yeah, that killed 2 guys. Especially because he doesn't have a leaf blower mechanic. So if you're going against a bunch of single wound guys, getting any extra mortal wounds,
you're popping off a few dudes,
just kills guys. So
and
that's
then with
great.
The new, morale phase, like you could kill a few more guys with that.
Exactly. So Swarmlord is very good. His double move plus Kraken with the triple, the triple D6 advance pick, the highest, plus being able to double that. I mean, like, he is lightning quick. Like, there's almost no way to prevent a turn 1 charge from him if I want it, which is kind of insane. Old One Eye, changing to a 9-wound character, massive. He was never able to be targeted really at all, and when he got there, he is still the angriest bug in the galaxy, my God.
Beat stick.
And Kraken, especially with those 2, super freaking helpful. Being able to bounce out of combat and go where they want, but more importantly for
does it feel good to be on the side of the clowns?
Yeah,
to be on the side of the clown angels?
That clownage is real good. It's real good. Especially with Old One Eye and new Carnifexes now having their new Battering Ram rule, which not only does the mortal wound thing it used to, but if they initiate a charge, they get +1 to their attack rolls, which
is really good.
Regular Carnifexes going to 3+, and Old One Eye being a double 2+, because he already gives himself a +1, then another +1. The reason that he needs that, though, is because his new additional attacks thing only happens on 6s.
So those additional buffs get him closer to getting those additional attacks.
Exactly. If he's fighting with his Scything Talons and he's charged, then he gets additional ones on 4s. If he's using his claws, he gets it on 3s. But he basically always hits on 2s.
Very nice.
Which is very good. So he's exceptional. I still love him. 200 points is a fucking bargain for what he's capable of. And Swarmlord didn't change. He's actually worth his 300 points now, like, hands down.
Oh, definitely.
Hands down. There is one strategy that, because this is pre-LVO, I don't want to say.
Don't want to share it? That's fine. There has been a crazy strategy that Andrew has concocted with Tyranids that I will attest. Like, a lot of times, I was like, I think I've got this one strategy. And then you go to, like, the next tournament, and you're like, oh, well, there it is. But this one, and who knows if any of you at our recent tournament is out there sharing this out into the meta, but you've come up with a pretty ridiculous strategy with a unit in Tyranids that we'll talk about post-LVO, because for our next Roll to Seize episode, which is going to be at the end of January, is going to be right after LVO, so we're going to talk about the tournament and everything, and then you can share your wild shenanigan strategy. It is very unexpected.
And it caused a little bit of salt in some people, especially in my last game.
It might have killed a couple Primarchs in this last tournament.
In the first turn. Anyways, so I've been going on for too long. So my list for LVO will have that strat. Still have Swarmlord, still have Old One-Eye. A Neurothrope, they're phenomenal. They're very good characters. Oh, yeah. I actually run Zoanthropes. I had 2 units in the last tournament, and they're great. Units of 6. So, like, auto 3 plus whatever their result is fantastic.
And they're so durable, so you can usually rely on them having a full 6-man unit by the time they get there.
I've only ever had an enemy intentionally shoot at them once and then immediately give up. I've had one shoot at them because there was no other good option.
Yeah.
But yeah, they are so hard to kill. They're great. I'm running, of all things, Pyrovores. You may not believe it.
Wow.
Look,
if there isn't... I mean, that is the most Roll to Seize thing that you could possibly do.
Yep. Okay, so let me...
Were they the first Tyrannid unit we highlighted on this podcast?
Maybe.
Or was it could it have been Lictors? I don't know.
It was Lictors, I think.
Here's the thing. The fact that you're using Pyrovores is incredible.
Let me explain. So I actually took out one of my units as Zoanthrope. So I'm running instead of a Kraken and Kronos. I ran Kronos before just to get the I can make you only cast on one thing now. The problem is that getting the units into like a good range other than the Deep Striking Rippers was like hard to have them in that bubble so that I can do it, because it's 24 inches, but it's like most of the time they know that and they keep their Psychers out of that range.
Hey, what's Kronos? Okay, I'm not going near that.
And that was the only reason to have them Kronos, and I'm just taking a Kraken Brigade this time because I need the CP. And I'd rather just have everything be able to bounce out of combat and still assault, even Zoanthropes, because they tie shit up, because why the hell not? And 3d6, this is why I'm using Pyrovores, because the Kraken ability, they can move and fire their weapon. It's an Assault Flamer, 10 inches.
Jeez.
And with 3d6, they're fast. If they get a 6, that's a 21-inch Flamer.
That's pretty good.
It's a heavy Flamer. It's really good. So I have 2 units of them. They're sort of my flankers, my sweepers. Like I said, I still have the other ones. I'm just using troops-wise Deep Striking Rippers. I'll explain why, is mainly because objective holding. They are the best for getting objectives. I was running Blaster Fexes, 24-shot Devour Fexes. They're good. Don't get me wrong. They are exceptionally good. The problem is, as soon as they get caught once, they're kind of not great anymore.
Right.
They can bounce out of combat and attack, but they have no AP, and they're not doing anything really in combat, so it's kind of just shit. So instead, I've changed those 2 Carnifexes to be 2 regular Carnifexes, full melee, because being able to bounce in and out of combat, now they actually get the bonus from Old One-Eye. They'll be rolling with Old One-Eye, of course, and they can screen Old One-Eye with their -1 and not worry about return fire.
Which is nice.
And they get something fully kitted out. Now it's ironic that the Screamer Killer is actually... Building a Screamer Killer from a regular Carnifex is actually a better option than taking the Screamer Killer. Kind of sad. But you can get 7 attacks on those guys in close combat, which is just disgusting. Hitting on 2s if Old One-Eye's nearby. So re-rolling 1s, it's insane. So I'm using them. I'm taking a Trigon, because Trigons are very good. And
they're the really big
snakes,
fast snaky guys,
the giant snakes. Then the importance of taking them is because I had the blaster effects is to shoot the crap out of things, but really they were there to eliminate the screen that every army has these days. Like there's always a screen
because you need it.
And one of the strategies I would use is I would move Swarmlord up and use the Kraken stratagem to double his advance, put him right at the front line, shoot the screen away, then give him his double move, and he goes to the back of their line through the screen.
And just kills something.
Goes for whatever he wants, essentially. Like, that's a strategy I use. You're welcome to steal my idea. But I had to shift that purpose of clearing screen. So instead, I'm taking a Trigon, and with them, I'm taking 20 Termagants with Devours.
And they will kill the screen for sure.
Oh, yeah. And the main reason to take them is because there's a double shoot strategy that I did not use in the last tournament with infantry. And now I see the value of it, of why I needed to have it. And even just 20 Termagants, that's 60 shots times 2. Like, my word.
Take it from me, who has used the 20 Guardian drop with Shuriken catapults. Those units will get the work done on a screen.
They do work.
They do.
So that's the core of my army. And so what I previously had was only really 2 things that were utilizing the bouncing it out of combat from Kraken. Now I have 5 monsters that do it, essentially, and they're all really nasty. And then a bunch of extra support units. I'm even taking Tyrant Guard. Now, a lot of people question this strategy, but I have found that you want to keep fucking Swarm Lord alive.
Yeah.
Vastly important to keep him alive. Tyrant Guard aren't bad either, but like, if I don't get first turn, Swarmlord needs to live, and having 9 extra wounds on him ensures that he survives.
That's very true.
But that's what I'm taking. So, Jay, what are you taking?
Yeah. So, I'm taking Necrons. No.
Another army that needs work.
Another army that could use a little bit of a boost. But I'm taking Craftworld Eldar. Of course I am.
Surprise.
Yeah. I've always taken them to LVO.
Everybody scowled at you for not taking Harlequins.
I'm so sorry. Listen, the Codex power is real, and I want to have a chance. And the clowns are very fun, and Clown Town will be back in full effect when Clown Town Codex comes out. But in the meantime, I'm very excited about Craftworld Eldar. I've been tweaking and playing with their army list setup so much. You've had the same problem with Tyranids, Andrew.
It's too much.
It's just like there's so many things you can do, and all of them are right.
The decision paralysis is real.
It's so tough. But there's one thing that I have noticed, and this has kind of shifted in the meta a little bit, and maybe we'll get a counter meta at LVO, because that does happen. Like it happened the one year with the Warp Spiders and things like that.
Yep.
So you never really predict it, which is what makes LVO so exciting. But what I have noticed recently, and how these guys did so much work, is how much more reliance there's been, especially in ITC, which we play, and that's how LVO is being run, is the reliance on strong infantry.
Yes.
Or the ability to kill infantry.
Oh, it's so important.
It's so important now to have like really strong troops and to have really strong infantry units.
And it's not even just, keep in mind, it's not even like the objectives secured like it was in 7th, just the capture objectives. It's just how the missions run. The infantry does all the work.
Yeah, the infantry needs to be moving, getting objectives, getting in, if you're going for, if anybody plays ITC, or if you don't play ITC, you can go to frontlinegaming.org and you can look at kind of how their system works for tournaments.
Yes.
But kind of how it works is, if you don't already know, if instead of doing like kind of the Maelstrom cards or how you would play the regular games of 8th edition, you have your primary mission, which is usually like something like jumping on some objectives or things like that. But it's mostly kill something and hold things during the turn.
Yep.
And then the other things you have are these things called secondaries. And they're things like, if you kill 3 units in a turn, you get a point. Or for every 10-man plus unit, you get a point. Or for every character you kill, you get a point. You pick these like names of things, like Headhunter or Titan Slayer, things like that. And and it's meant to, it's really clever because it's meant to let you choose to fight a mission based on your opponent, which means it removes that rock, paper, scissor mentality of 7th edition, because now it's like, okay, if I'm playing an army that has just tons of big units, I'm going to pick this mission called Reaper, which is every time you kill a 10 man or more, you're getting points. So you're just racking up points from killing these blobs.
Yeah, so we should point out is that unlike the previous edition, these missions are scored at the end of your player turn and the game turn. So like the secondary missions you get at the end of your player turn, the primary missions you get at the end of game turn. So it's scoring every turn as opposed to primary in the previous edition you'd only get at the end of the game.
Right.
So no more of that like last minute, I'm going to move 48 inches onto that objective on the other side of the board and I win.
Yeah.
Wasn't that fun? No more of that.
It's progressive. It's not all in one shot at the very end of the game.
And the maelstroms you pointed out, it eliminates that step of rolling every turn to figure out what your maelstroms are.
Exactly. And the randomness of it, like you have perfect information the whole game.
Full control.
Which is amazing, right? You never have to rely on, man, I hope I get that 3 kills so I can get extra kills.
Because that happened. In 7th edition, like, you lost games just because you rolled missions badly.
And there's enough die rolling, hot and cold rolling that happens in the game, we all know it, that it's one extra thing that doesn't need to be a part of it. And I, so far from playing it, I really enjoyed. I know you really enjoyed as well.
Love it.
It's just great to have that from the start, and you have more control over how you can win. But anyways, so because of that, because I know that that's such an important part of it, of moving constantly, I've really gotten into the infantry units of Eldar, and one in particular from this last tournament is Dire Avengers.
They're very good.
It's so funny because of all the things that I've taken very seriously at painting in like the past, I've always kind of, because I change things up so frequently thanks to 7th edition and all the new things in 8th, I've been, very used to just getting to 3 color minimum for tournaments. But there was actually one unit that I spent a lot of time painting and happened to be Dire Avengers. But I never had a chance to use them because they
were just obsolete.
They weren't good in 7th.
Yeah.
And then before the Craft World Codex came out, they weren't even that great in the Index. And you weren't using Craft World stuff anyway. You were using Ynnari. But basically, I really love the new Dire Avengers. I now have 4 units of Dire Avengers. I'm taking 2 battalions and a Supreme Command detachment for my Craft World Eldar. My 1 battalion is Biel-Tan, and it's 4 units of Dire Avengers. 2 units apiece are in a Wave Serpent, so you've got 2 Wave Serpents.
Non-dedicated transports that you can put multiple units in. What is this edition?
Amazing! And then in each transport, in each of the 2 Wave Serpents, I'm very happy to say, part of coming from my Supreme Command detachment is 2 Phoenix Lords.
Yep.
I have Ozerman himself in one, and Fugen in the other. And I know Fugen, he's not rolling with Fire Dragons, and I'll get to them in a second, but I've come to realize in this edition, you kind of need, especially for an army that's a little bit more fragile, like Eldar, it's helpful to have these beefy, especially characters that can roll behind them, be protected, and then if something comes up and charges them, heroic intervention in, or just be there to help get your shooty units out of combat.
You need melee beat sticks.
And man, does Ozerman and Fugen do work in close combat.
Yeah.
And I mean, now with the new Rend system, right?
Yeah.
Having a 2-up save is really good now. And on top of that, I mean, Ozerman has a 4-up invul and 3-up invul in close combat, and you can buff it to be a 2-up invul. So that's
shenanigans.
Fun. And Fugen actually has Disgustingly Resilient. He has a 5-up, negate mortal wounds and regular wounds.
Yeah, which for a character really will only come into play in combat, because that's the only time you're going to ever really be able to target them.
And Fugen is really good. He has a Melta Axe.
Yeah, it's AP -4, I think.
And if he's wounded with D3 wounds, and if he's wounded once, his strength goes up to 7, and he gets 6 attacks. He just destroys.
So he's like, you want to fight?
You want to mess? Oh, let's do this. He's got a bad temper. So I've got the Phoenix Lords. I'm also supporting them in each Wave Serpent. Each Wave Serpent is stacked with 12 apiece, because you can take 12 total. Also in there, I've got rolling a Spirit Seer in each one, because Spirit Seers are really good. They give really good buffs.
Well, just the Eldar psychic table in general is very good.
And I've seen from this last tournament, the Protect and Jinx from Runes of Battle is incredible.
It's invaluable.
It's so good. 1, Protect to buff Ozerman to be a 2-up in close combat. Throw him at Mortarion. He will not die.
Yeah.
He will just stand there and just be like, hit me. It doesn't matter. Or I threw Jinx on a Mortarion. You don't stop it, it's game over. He's dead. You throw Jinx on anything, that 1 extra remove of a save, especially an invul, curtains.
I'm seeing some prejudice.
Yeah.
Against Demon Primarchs.
Hey, Mortarion, get out of here. No. They're very scary.
They are very scary.
I have a good reason to.
They are legitimately terrifying.
And anytime I've killed a Mortarion, that's only after turns of him murdering most of my army.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you just, like Magnus is more tricky, whereas Mortarion is straight. He goes at you. If you don't kill him, the problems.
Yep.
18 swings. Oh, God.
Every time. So, basically, those are like my 2 Wave Serpents. I've also got, supporting in my other battalion is Alatok. So I've got 3 Rangers. They're out there to grab objectives and hide and be tricky.
Be screens if they need be.
Exactly. But the real kind of powerhouses in the army that are to support these units, right? Because I've got my Dire Avengers out there like grabbing objectives, and they can pump out a lot of shots. Strength 4 with that many shots is really good now.
Also the reroll 1s because you're Bealtan.
Yeah, Bealtan self-buffing themselves on reroll 1s on all shuriken weapons is incredible. What I took out of this list that I had in a previous tournament was I had 20 Guardians with shuriken catapults. I've had a real tough time keeping them or pulling them out of the list. Being able to deep strike them in, they clear things out like nobody's business. But
yeah, I mean that's what my Termagant bomb is becoming.
Yeah, I'm playing with something different, and that brings me to where I am right now, where I also supporting these kind of troop units. I've got 3 specialty units, basically 3 aspect warrior units. I've got my Dark Reapers, which are going to probably be webway striking in. I've got Fire Dragons, which are going to be webway striking in. And then I've got Swooping Hawks. Now, that third one's a little bit weird, and I'll get to it in a second. And I did a lot of math to try to figure that one out. But Dark Reapers, I forever have been using them as kind of like a fire base. When the game starts, I kind of hide them, and then I walk them out of cover and they shoot. Makes sense.
Yep, moving fire without penalty.
But in this recent tournament, I found they're kind of like target numero uno, turn 1. And people will send everything at it. Mortarion will come up and kill them. Demons will smite them down. I will have things come out of the sky and deep strike and warp time and run up and shoot them.
Especially because most armies are relying on -1 to hit strategies, and they completely bypass that.
And they're just like, we're going to shoot you normal. Yep. And they get targeted. And look, they're a great bullet sponge for turn 1, but then they don't do anything. And I spend a lot of points getting them to leave combat and shoot again. It's
not the best investment.
It's not the best investment for what they can do, and they can do a lot.
Yeah.
So instead, if I webway strike them, my God, these things have 48-inch range. Fire Dragons are very dependent on webway strike. They really do need it, and I struggled for a while because before I had them in a Wave Serpent, which I like, but at the end of the day, for a unit that only has a range 12, you need to be able to position them where you need them for them to be the most effective. But Dark Reapers, I'm really putting them in there because there's so much more strategic options to have a unit that can shoot 48 inches that doesn't lose anything from movement and place them anywhere after your opponent has moved.
Yeah, the most important thing with that strategy is that you're eliminating them from being chosen as a target, which means that even if they have good board coverage, meaning they're screening deep strikers because you have to be outside of that 9 inches, doesn't matter with 48-inch range. You could just deep strike them back into your deployment zone. The bottom line is that you're dictating when they get to be aggressive, as opposed to just hoping your opponent doesn't notice them or something.
Exactly, yeah. And I would say the last unit, the Swooping Hawks, which again, very tough to figure out why I was going to use these guys, but what I needed was I wanted one other unit that could go in and kind of do the replacement that my Guardians were doing before, where they were coming in and just launching a whole bunch of shots into a unit and clearing out backfield. Because I've seen in a lot of the games that I've played, especially with these LVO missions, these ITC missions, that people are dropping little Nurglings here and there, or they're dropping little scouts and stuff to grab these objectives.
Sprinkling.
And I don't need something that comes in like Fire Dragons and can blow up a Mortarion in one turn. I need something that can come in and clear out these little back dudes, but then also be able to move. And I was between Warp Spiders, Striking Scorpions, and Swooping Hawks, because they were all fairly cheap, because I didn't have many points left. But each of them could put out similar damage, but some more, some needed to get in close combat, so there was a lot of risk involved. Striking Scorpions are good, but you got to get them there, and if you really want to get them there, you got to spend 2 CP to do the extra buff to get them in charge range, which is kind of a waste to clear out back units.
Yeah.
And Warp Spiders, they don't put out as much damage as they used to before. They're a lot harder to kill because they're 3-up armor, and they also have the -1 to hit, but they don't put out as much damage. I've shot scout units, and they've left most of them alive, and the scouts have gone in and actually killed them. So in the end of the day, Swooping Hawks put out enough damage, especially against what you're mostly going to shoot are these small T4, T3 usually units in the backfield, that they do the work. they put out a lot of damage and they have a high mobility that they can actually get the job done.
Well,
they have
a high mobility and they have the longest ranged weapons of that entire smattering.
Oh yeah, 24-inch range. It's good. And so that's why I chose Swooping Hawks. And then finally, to round this whole list off, I've got 2 Autarchs rocking the old war gear, one with Swooping Hawk wings and a fusion gun, and he's dropping in, as you can imagine, right behind the Fire Dragons, giving them reroll ones to shoot. Yep. Then I've got Swooping Hawk wings with a Reaper launcher dropping in behind the Dark Reapers, giving them reroll ones. And now you've got a really great support system for these 2 Webway Strikers.
Yep.
And on top of that, I gave the one with the Reaper launcher, my Warlord, Mark of Incomparable Hunter, which means he is sniping out characters. 3 damage. Look out, Commissars. And then I have Warlock Conclave to do tricky stuff, because Warlock Conclave, check them out. They're very tricky. So, guys, those are our lists for LVO. I'm really, really excited.
Pumped. So pumped.
Really excited to play and see all you guys there. And we please, as we said before, if you see us at LVO, please come up and say hi. We really love meeting people out at these events, and thank you so much for listening to this crazy show we put on here in the Brown Library.
Library.
Listen, look, we deal with crazy clown people all the time. Sometimes it's nice to get back to Terra and just hang out with regular people.
Walls with mysterious sounds that come out of nowhere.
With those pratfall sound effects. It's oh man, we're gonna have to figure out what that is. But anyways, guys, that was episode 42 of Roll to Seize and our last episode of 2017.
Hoorah!
We have some exciting stuff we're actually going to talk about in 2018 in the new year, and some new things we're adding to the show and some changes. It should be very fun. But as always, we'll be posting a new episode of this segment every last Wednesday of the month, with episodes of Dark Heresy the first and second Wednesday. And if you'd like to download more episodes or check out other similar podcasts, head over to partialarc.com. You can email us any questions at rolltoseize@gmail.com. Of course, you can always follow us on Twitter and Instagram for tournament and model picks at partialarc. Thanks for listening, and see you at LVO!
See you there!